Well, here we are. It is 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock. Oh, and there's Gladys right there. So, Gladys, let me invite you. Oops. And now you can just click on accept. Oh my gosh, that was the fastest we've ever gotten on together.
We're getting better.
Oh my gosh, I love this.
We're getting smarter.
Yeah. Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
Just lower you down a little bit. I can only see the top of your head.
Turn the, not this,
Yeah.
turn this part, the phone itself.
Oh,
Perfect.
is that?
Yep. Oh, go back.
You fix it, Glenn.
No, not that. There.
There. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Well, did you have a nice long weekend?
We had a lovely weekend. I got to see my new great grandbaby, Taylor Rose, 8 weeks old, and she smiled at me.
Oh, wow. That is, so she's the one that was brought into this world when you and I were on a call.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's so lovely. Where do they live?
Here.
Oh, good.
And so we get to, so yeah, life is so good.
Life is good. Yes, I'm just off the sisters reunion of all 6 of us together. I still have one sister with me. And it was really amazing. And that's why we weren't here last Tuesday. I was out of service. I was not in a place where we jump on. So anyway, but we're here, we're back, and we have, as I mentioned earlier, I put out a little short video saying what we were going to talk about today, and that you were really interested in talking about this hot topic right now, which it's always been a hot topic, but right now it's back in the news of abortion. And I was, I knew that you would have some beautiful words of wisdom to impart on all of us just around abortion.
Yes. I mean, I don't think any woman who has really been thoughtful about the whole process has not been conflicted at some time or another with the whole concept of abortion, because it's pivotal to our lives individually as women. It's almost impossible to become an adult woman and not someplace along the line be confronted with an issue such as abortion, whether it's your own or somebody else's or some way. This is something that we really need all the information we can get to understand it according to how we individually can understand it, which is okay. Now, it took me a long time to be comfortable with any kind of a decision about abortion. I remember being in Wellsville, Ohio, and having an 11-year-old girl come in pregnant with incest from her father. Now, I couldn't let that little girl go the rest of her life. I couldn't do it. I made arrangements for her to have an abortion. Being conflicted one way or another was not the issue. It was the life of that child.
Right.
To me at that point, that was important.
Not the life of the unborn child, the life of the 11-year-old.
The 11-year-old, this child there in front of me, who had come to me with her mother asking for help. I could go give her only the only kind that I knew. In the meantime, I'm being conflicted with this and wondering if it's the right thing to do or not. So about 5 or 10 years later, I'm sitting in my office talking to a patient who I knew very well. I knew this woman. She was the kind of person who had these amazing experiences. Like, for instance, one time she was taking a nap in the afternoon and she got a phone number in her head and she couldn't get it out. So she rang the phone number, and it happened to be a high school classmate of hers in San Diego who was in the process of trying to decide to whether to commit suicide or not.
Wow.
And she took him through it. Now, the reason I tell that story is this is not a wackadoodle lady who's talking to me about some thing that happened and she had an idea, okay? So this is the person that came to me with her 4-year-old daughter one day. She's sitting in my office and she's saying, my daughter and I just came from having lunch. And this 4-year-old said to her, just she talking away, and all of a sudden she stops and she says, last time you weren't my mama was so-and-so and she did such and such. And then she goes on and she says, no, that wasn't the last time. Last time when I was 4 inches and I was in your tummy, Daddy wasn't ready to marry you yet. So I went away, but I came back. And she goes on back with her. So this is why this woman had come into my office. She said, what am I supposed to do with this information? Which my 4-year-old, who has never heard of such a thing,
Right.
says to me. And I said, well, thank you, because that's going to help me a lot in working with this issue also. So since that time, I've written about it, I've talked about it, other physicians have taken up the concept. And here's what I say to patients. When a woman comes into my office and she is trying to decide what to do, have an abortion or not have an abortion, the whole soul gut-wrenching decision that she has to make. I mean, this is not a decision that women make casually. It's a gut-wrenching decision that impacts their whole life.
Mm-hmm.
My response to them, I tell them this story, first of all, because to me, it's a very important story. And then I say to them, what I'd like you to do is to go home, find a quiet space, and however you pray about this and ask for guidance, because that's what you need. Get the guidance you need, however it feels, whatever you're doing, and write it down. Write it down one way or another, whether the decision was one way or another, or whatever it was. Write down what you've been doing, and then if you are feeling that the decision is go ahead and have an abortion, write a letter to the baby, write a song to the baby, or talk to the baby, or say whatever it is. Communicate with the soul that is in the process of wanting to enter the earth at this time. And then when you go to sleep, ask for a dream. And if the dream is conflicted, try it again. But this is a process that you can go through so that by the time you have made it, by the time the baby arrives, you're going to be welcoming that baby. And it's not, or by the time you have gone through the abortion, you are at peace with why you did the act, because it is not an act of killing. In the way I look at it, you have given the baby an option. That baby can decide to withdraw. and you have a spontaneous abortion. Now, I've had patient after patient after patient do this. And what happens is that when you have a spontaneous abortion, the baby has said, oh, I get it. Okay, there'll be other times. And the baby leaves. And that's okay. It's not a matter of you have killed something or some being. We're talking about consciousness. And when I was in Afghanistan and I was talking to those Afghani women, and they didn't know anything about, they knew how they got pregnant, but after that, they didn't know anything. But when I said to them that that there were eggs and sperm, and I explained the whole thing, and one woman says, how many eggs? And I said one, and how many sperm? I said millions, and she gets to choose which one she wants. Those women sat up there for the first time in their life. They thought they had a choice. But now I said that because I thought that was true. However, in the meantime, we have knowledge about stem cells. And every cell in our body knows exactly what it is. I have a nose cell that knows it belongs there and not in my toenail. It's the consciousness of consciousness itself, which we don't understand. But if every cell has consciousness, if every cell is in the right place at the right time, and the body is going to function in this amazing way, and there are decisions that we've made one way or another that have guided our life to be the fullest and most important that we could make it, then God bless us all. That's what we're supposed to do. And to me, it's been not just a liberating, a consciousness expanding experience that patient did for me when she told me that.
Yeah, that's so great. But I just, how do we help the women who can't see it from your perspective, who can't see it's much more black and white. It's much more life and death. And then that brings up the whole religious piece there's just so much around it. And so many people are freighted with their ideas about it. And I love what you say, and I love how you come at it. But I know that there are so many women that are going to not be able to grasp the concept of reincarnation
And that's okay. And that's okay. It's their life, it's their choice, and that's just fine. I have no, when I say you make the choice, I mean you choose where you're going to go with this. And if you're going to condemn yourself for doing an abortion, then you're going to be in misery the rest of your life. If you can understand it from my perspective and from other people's perspective and from other knowledge that's coming out and from research, a multitude of things, if you can come at it from that point, it'll make your decision easier. Aside from that, it's your decision, and God bless you. You have every right to make the decision you want to and live with that, whatever it is. It's okay. God loves you no matter what you do.
You make it sound so simple, and yet this whole thing going on in Texas right now, and removing our rights and all of that, it's so sad.
It's been, the whole process of birth has been corrupted. My opinion. I apologize. That's my opinion.
Right. Well, I happen to agree with you. So again, in that way, I guess it's just conversations like these that can help women to
I think,
understand that very thing. And that, yes, it has been corrupted, and this is how it can be if you choose and want to choose it to be a different way.
and Katie, if you're choosing and living, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about death and killing, because I don't think that that's what it's all about. I'm talking about life and living. And from my perspective, it's a choice, and women have the right to choose whichever way they want to live their lives.
Right.
But they have a right to choose. I don't think that the government has a right to choose how they live their lives. I don't think that any government has a right to tell women what they have to do with their body. I mean, that is, in my mind, major sin. I mean,
I agree. I mean, yes, I agree. And I don't know what we're supposed to do about all of that that's happening. That maybe, just we're entering into an interesting new time of that, and there's other states that are looking at this and thinking that maybe that's not such a bad idea. And it just seems so crazy to me that we could be going back in that direction. Us losing our ability to choose.
Yeah, I think that's why this kind of information is important to share. That's why I wanted to talk about it today, is because we don't need to be shy about what we're talking about. This is important. And we need to say our piece. Who has a right to tell me? I've lived 100 years. For crying out loud, I've experienced a lot of things. Who has a right to tell me that that anybody that I helped to get an abortion had committed a sin? For crying out loud? When did God say that?
Right. Right. And you're right. You've lived on this planet for 100 years, and who better than to just be educating us all? Like, it is a beautiful thing. So getting your voice out there, the voice of reason, the voice of wisdom from a woman who not only has helped so many women, but you've also helped women make that choice to have an abortion in a really conscious and positive way, and all to help them create a better life for themselves in so doing, and having that conversation. So it's just great.
And Katie, another thing that's happened, some women have had an abortion and felt guilty all their lives.
Yes.
Just completely felt really, really like. But when they hear it from this perspective, they take a deep breath and they ask for forgiveness and they go on with their lives. I mean, it's like it's like shining the light on a dark corner in your house that nobody's wanted to look at, but you've always known it's there, and it's always been something that you just kind of, and we've done this. Is we've pushed more ugliness into that corner, and the more we push ugliness into that corner, the farther we as women who are conscious of what our bodies are and what our bodies are doing are being pushed out of any kind of decision. And that's a sin. I mean, God, it's my opinion.
And don't you also think that when we push those feelings of guilt or unworthiness or any of those not so positive emotions or thoughts we have about ourselves, when we push those into those deep corners, that's when disease can take hold, because
Absolutely.
that begins to fester.
Absolutely. Disease loves those corners.
Right. Right. And so when we can get in there and shine the light on those buried emotions, that's how, have you found that in your practice when the true healing happens for people who have had all kinds of different things? There was an emotional release
Oh,
connected to that.
yeah, yeah. That's when grace enters into their lives.
Mm.
You know, when the whole sort of pattern that they've taken on of how they deal with issues, if they can look at it from another perspective and actually shine some light that is a light of reason, because when fear steps in, reason steps out.
Say that again.
When fear steps in, reason steps out.
Mm.
And
So
when that happens,
somebody just posted that says, it feels like the guilt and shame being pushed upon us as women around this decision is purposefully disempowering to the sacred feminine wisdom we hold.
absolutely, I would encourage the audience to respond to this, because I think that I would, the foundation would like to know about it too, but I think the world needs to hear from us. Either way, I mean, whatever your response to the discussion today is, let us know what it is.
Right.
Oh, let us know, because we can't keep it hit. We can't keep pushing more ugliness into this corner, and that's what's happening. I mean, if your Uber driver could turn you in and get that $10,000, come on. Or if I could get, uh, because I told somebody that my story, I mean, at this point of talking about what I'm talking to a lot of people, if any one of them chose to accuse me of telling them to get an abortion, I could be sued. Isn't that right?
Yeah. And that is just crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just crazy. So, okay. So what do we do? Like, yes, we have these conversations, but it feels like we need to reach bigger audience, like it needs to be a bigger conversation. How do we get our voices heard in a way that stops this craziness?
Well, I'd like my state of Arizona to listen. I'd like the Congress to listen. I'd like anybody who is conflicted by this issue to pay attention and not just put it over into the corner again.
And isn't your state one of the ones that's
Uh-huh.
thinking that this is a good idea?
Uh-huh. Our governor thinks it's a great idea.
Right.
Because he hasn't said anything. And silence means consent. So here we go. We've been quiet too long. And we have this information. I mean, that little 4-year-old didn't conjure that up out of nothing.
Right.
It's
Right.
out of the mouth of babes that this is a soul memory of hers that she presented to her mother, and her mother came in with her so that we could talk about it. I mean, isn't that what life's about?
Yeah. Yes. But I also feel like that kind of a story in the eyes of some politician is
Oh,
just going to be completely dismissed of like, well, that's crazy.
oh yeah. Yeah. But I'm 100 years old. What can they do to me? I love it.
Yeah, you've got nothing to lose. It's great. I mean, it's so good. Like, yeah. Wow. it does feel a little overwhelming. It feels very, yeah, it feels overwhelming to me about where we're at and what we have
Yeah.
on both sides, what we have the capacity to do and the other side of that, that we have been, they are taking our rights away as women.
Yeah. And it's our responsibility. We really need to take it on. We really do.
Yeah, I just am not sure what that looks like. Again,
Well, we'll see when we see it. It's a living process. And if we women take on our responsibility and start really speaking up and writing up and doing what we have the opportunity to do right now, which we may not have the opportunity to do if this goes on shoving stuff in the dark corner.
Right. Right. So I guess for right now, it's just like you said, voicing our opinion, making ourselves known, and whether that's making yourself heard on a political, like writing to our state representatives and that kind of thing.
Do what you can.
Right.
Maybe it's talking to our neighbor. Maybe it's talking to our daughters. Maybe,
Yes.
well, maybe it's talking to our husbands and our sons. Our sons, fortunately, our sons need to understand these things.
Right. So you've got 4 of them. Get them going.
They're right there, boy.
Sure they are.
Yeah.
I am sure they are. Oh, it is just so fascinating that we're here.
Yes. I think this is an important day.
And so the other thing that you had wanted to, and maybe that's all you wanted to say about Afghanistan, just, when you went there. What year was it that you went there?
2004.
Okay. And teaching the women like that. So can you just share that story again? Because that's really, that's kind of what we're talking about here is getting in groups of women, and you taught them so beautifully just about the process of birth and just share the statistics on what kind of shift was made in the maternal mortality rate because of your voice impacting 30 women.
Well, the amazing thing about this was I woke up at midnight on the 31st of August, realized that what was going on was a continuation of what had started way back then. And because these women, we called together 30 women from 10 in the Bamiyan district of Afghanistan. The Bamiyan district is where the big Buddhas were colossal statues. And it's interesting that 10/11 is coming up because this day, those Buddhas were destroyed by bin Laden just before 9/11. So in 2000, no, it was I'm wrong. It's 2001, they were destroyed by bin Laden. So this whole issue of talk about mixed up, confused energies was there. And these women were part of that whole mindset that allowed them to go through a pregnancy with no calcium in their foods, with no food when they're in labor, with no water to drink when they're in labor, so that the only way that they could, sometimes they had enough energy to push the baby out, but sometimes they didn't. And if they didn't, then somebody from the outside had to push the baby out. It meant that you'd have a prolapsed uterus or multiple fistulae or any kinds of terrible, terrible damage to the woman's body and frequently the baby. So when my brother asked me to come over and work with Future Generation with these women, it was because the Afghani women had the highest mortality rate in the world at that time. So we just had these 30 women and we talked about pregnancies and we talked about, I said I had 6 babies and they knew, and women talk. And we had a way of keeping track of each pregnancy that the woman talked about and what happened with that pregnancy. And so it's beautiful, for which is information that's available still. I mean, these 30 women did. But the beautiful thing about this is that what they did, they went home and they taught their other women. And within a few years, the mortality rate in Afghanistan was cut in half. Now, this is what women can do. We can, if we understand something and we know how we can do things and we understand our femifestation, our very feminine power and energy of getting life more, more livable and more in tune with what our souls are really looking for, then we can walk into the light. And the interesting thing is that the people, future generations, which were the people that my brother is working with, they still have 500 people in Afghanistan, and 4 out of those 5 are opting to stay there because they feel that they have a message for their fellow men, that they can, or fellow people in Afghanistan, and they love their country. So they're going to stay there with the Taliban because they feel they can have influence. Now, each one of us has the opportunity to choose where we're going to go from this time. Think about it, 9/11. How many days is that? 2 days? And what I'm talking about was just right after 9/11, they destroyed those amazing, well, they're statues, whatever you want, they were colossal objects of adoration for a whole country. Taliban destroyed those. Now, that's what the Afghani people are still suffering from. And that was in the district where I was working with these women who were able to understand something about birthing so that they could tell their sisters. And we women know how to do that.
And we women have, I agree with you. And, you know, in a prior conversation that you and I had, and you said you found your voice at, what was it, 92?
93.
93. So, you know, I think that is part of the challenge, is that we as women have been so suppressed and don't speak we don't know how to speak out. I mean, that certainly is part of, you know, I'm working on that too. And I know so many women had that, and it's just so frustrating because it is, sure, it's externally imposed, but we've chosen to take that on, right? We've chosen to take on that suppression and let ourselves feel the way that we feel, and we are the only ones that can flip that script, change the way that we feel and we think, and just start to speak out, even though it feels vulnerable and scary and our voice may be shaky and we don't know what to say, but at least it's going to start coming up and out.
And you know what I realized when I realized my, what my voice was about was that when I was not accepting my voice, I was actually denying things I was saying. Because if you're silent, when somebody comes up and says, "Oh, that's a wonderful idea," and you say, "Well, you know, I got that from so or somebody told me," or so we deflect it from our own voice. What we're basically saying, "Well, I don't know if it's true or not," or so we diminish. If we don't accept our voice for what it is, we diminish what we're saying, and actually, in many cases, deny it.
Right.
So
You're
that we have to keep arguing. It doesn't matter what other people come back with, really. It matters how we respond to what they come back with.
right. And if we can hold our ground and not feel like we have to defend
Right.
ourselves, I mean, that's part of the challenge, right? Is that we
Right.
speak up and then we feel a little bit nervous about what we've said and somebody may attack us and then we feel like we have to defend ourselves. So it's just having that firm knowing.
When fear steps in, reason steps out.
Right. So how would you teach people to quell the fear?
Live it. We have to find the way in which we as people, as individuals, can live a life as in as much peace and as much knowledge and understanding as is possible for us to do.
Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
I just want to share with you that your great niece has commented, love seeing and hearing my great aunt Gladys on here. Thanks for hosting her.
Which great niece?
It's her Instagram name is TKTI83.
All right. Isn't that wonderful? Hi.
Yes, it is. I love it. I love that, Tara. It's Tara or Tara.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That wonderful story. Just a wonderful story.
That's great. So feel the fear, do it anyway. Speak up. Firmly ground yourself in our own feminine divine power and just speak your truth.
And let us know. Get back to us on what how
Okay.
you.
So maybe our next conversation next week, let's have a continuation of this and just see what has come up for people.
Great.
That would be great.
Yeah.
So we'll share this out and please share it with everybody that's on here. Please share it with people so that we can just widen the discussion of how we can best serve each other as women and just keep this conversation going so that we can be empowered and make a difference.
And let's share it with our men.
Okay. We will share it with our men. I love that. And our boys.
Yeah.
Our young men.
Yeah.
All right. That sounds beautiful.
All right.
All right, Gladys. Well, do you have anything else that you would like to impart on us, or we will just reconvene next week?
I think we have a load.
I think we do. And I appreciate you being so open and gracious to just share this topic because it's a tricky one for a lot of people. And you bring a lot of grace and wisdom to the conversation around it. And that's a beautiful thing. So thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So we will talk again next week. All right. Love you.
You too.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Thanks for being on. We'll see you next week.
Yes.
Okay.